I'd like to welcome everyone and especially our neighbors to the north from Glendale Colony. It's always nice to have you guys attend the meetings. Important dates to remember. Regular board meeting today. Certified negotiations is Tuesday, May 6th at the admin. A facilities meeting on Thursday, May 8th. That would be next Thursday. And staff appreciation, May 9th. That would be next Friday at BHS.
And elections is on Tuesday, the 6th.
And elections on Tuesday, next Tuesday, May 6th. All right, I will ask for an approval of the minutes.
Motion.
We gotta call the meeting.
Motion by James, second by Lockley. Any questions, concerns?
Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes to today's agenda. Any more questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
One
Okay,
more question. What about that coach's position? Is it? It's still on the agenda here or?
No, we can address that during the coaches update. I guess if there's questions on it. All right, with any more, do we have any more questions on it?
Nope.
Agenda? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? We had today's recognitions at the bus garage and it turned out real nice. They had excellent food down there. Thank Wayne for all of his staff. And I'll ask for a motion for the approval of today's agenda.
A motion. Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Christie. Questions or comments on today's agenda? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, none opposed. Public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Could you present the
Read that.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, so we have to read you
Hang on, you gotta read.
We have to read this and
this subject to the provisions of the Montana Open Meeting Law under section 2-3-103 and policy 1341.
All our subjects were in that.
We will proceed. 5 minutes to comment on a matter of public interest, private personnel matters, individual student matters, and pending legal issues are not matters of public interest. Any person who raises any concern, an employee or individual student matter or grievance, or who wishes to discuss pending legal cases or issues will be ruled out of order, and that person's public comment period will be. There will be no action or on any matter raised at this time. If the board decides that further discussion or action is needed, the matter will be placed on the agenda for a future meeting in order for the public to be notified of the discussion and may participate before any action taken. Thank you.
Our past head boys wrestling coach wasn't just a wrestling coach. He was a mentor and a parent figure for those of us who were lacking. He dedicated himself in countless hours to building this program from the ground up, and without his guidance and support, we'd be nowhere. His influence extended far beyond the mat as he instilled values of discipline, perseverance, and teamwork in every single one of us. Without him, our wrestling program is nothing, and I'm confident that both boys and girls teams for middle school and high school would agree. His absence leaves a void that will be incredibly hard to fill. It's a loss that affects us all as a team and as a community. He has built an environment of trust and love in the room, and not just anybody can do that with teenagers, especially teenagers who come from and live on the reservation. He made wrestling a safe place and home for so many of us. It's hard to find a coach who can show compassion, patience, and the values of wrestling and working hard, not just for anybody, but for yourself.
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
What's her name?
We have any more public, we have any more public comment?
Brian said he is Almost here.
Oh,
So-
all right, okay, we'll keep going. All right, with no more questions or public comment, we'll move into items of information. We all had our reports. Do we have any questions on items of information for superintendent or? None? All right, we'll move into our superintendent's report. Rebecca.
So the first attachment is just a brief update on the happenings for this month. Major things going on are certified teacher negotiations, and then getting ready to prepare next year's budget and close out this year's budget. So those are the major things going on. In addition to that, I have the results of the 4-day instructional week survey. Give you those, there's a front and a back.
There you go.
Oh, thank you. So if you took the survey, one of the first questions, it asked you to identify which group you
Thank you.
or groups you belong to. So any individual taking the survey could identify themselves as a community member, a staff member if they were a staff member, or a grandparent. So they could identify themselves as multiple different groups. Overall, you can see each of those groups that were identified. In the green band, those are our employees, certified, classified, professional, technical. And you can see the responses there. The white bands are community members. So you can see those results. We do have the purple band, which is grandparents, parents and grandparents. And then that blue band is our students. We had students 6th through 12th grade take this survey. So on the back, you can see the overall result, 62% saying yes, they are in favor of a 4-day instructional week, 25.9% saying no, and 11.7% said they were unsure. In addition to that, we did break it up into those groups. So our students, 69% yes, 14.9% no, 16% said unsure. Community members, families, school board, and coaches, 66.3% said yes, 26% said no, 7.7% unsure. And then staff, 80.3% said yes, 10% said no, and 9% said unsure. So those are the results. In addition to that, the questions that were asked, it asked what additional services might you need if on Friday. And so Travis and I will work on the best means to communicate that information to you. It's a little bit harder than putting it together in a pie graph. And then there were lots of comments. And so we'll pull those two pieces of information and present them to you at the next meeting. But this is just the response results. Any questions on those? All right.
Do you think you could break down some of the, there's been, let's see, there's Arlie, Harlem, and Hayes, Heartbeat, and I guess I'd kind of consider Cupbank. Those are all, a lot of Native Americans that go to school there. Can you find out, if their attendance improved and if their scores improved? Because, we heard these different things and, they're coming from Missoula and they're doing different demographics than we are. I know we're the biggest one of all these districts, but
Yeah.
And I know Rocky Boy planned on going to that. I kind of did,
Yeah,
I did it myself and I can tell you all of them improved the scores and the attendance. So that's what you're gonna find out.
I will bring that back to the next meeting.
I have a question, Don.
Actually, with that said, I'd like to have you also see what size the school district they are, if they're class C, A, B, how many kids are enrolled in their district. If you would please, so we can compare that as well.
Also, Miles City and Havre, you can compare their.
That 4-day week too?
They're 4 days.
Miles City is just this year. The Havre's been at it a couple years. This is our second year. Okay, yep, I can do that.
Thank you.
Last week, we met as principals and directors, and then Lockley and Jimmy joined us this end of the second day to do our strategic planning. So we're getting ready to prepare a strategic plan for the next 5 years. At the beginning of that 2-day session, we were divided, Iris divided us into groups. And within our groups, we needed to draw our vision of our school within over the next 5 years. Where do we want to end up over the next 5 years? And so across that, some commonalities, it came out of collaboration. We wanted to establish better collaboration between buildings, with our community and parents. And so that was a key part of that transition. And then just focusing on the healthy growth of our students, looking at all areas, academics, their social, emotional, and mental health, as well as their physical health. So looking at all of them as a whole and developing them as a whole. So that was the vision. Out of that strategic planning session, we developed 4 pillars that we'll focus on for the next 5 years. The first one being really just communicating that vision across the district. So every one of our staff members, every one of our community members can articulate what our district's vision is for students. So that was the first pillar. The second one is funding strategies for the next 5 years. We do know that we are going to have to make some budget reductions, but that doesn't reduce the needs of our students. And so we know we're going to have to make some pretty creative decisions about how to either increase revenue or decrease expenses. The next area is further developing our district wellness plan, wellness for staff, students, and moving forward with that. And the last one is training for technology and improving our means of communication with families and their ability to access our digital tools. We recognize that we have a wide array of demographics. So Iris had done a study of our district prior to coming. And of our house, we have a little over 400 households in our district. Half of them are considered the parent or the grandparent or great grandparent being the primary caregiver. And so we know that communicating with those families is different than communicating with families that have grown up in the technology age. And so we need to work on communication in lots of different modes to reach our public. In addition to that, throughout our session, we identified some challenges of reaching those goals established in the pillars and some goals, outcomes that we wanted. And we identified some critical policies that we need to clarify and communicate across our staff and develop a better knowledge of them for ourselves as leaders. So, and Leslie, do you have anything that you want to add from what?
I thought,
No, it was real interesting and, is it Iris, pretty paint. Was really very informative. She knew exactly what she's doing. And that's what she does. She travels all over, not only Montana, but other states and does this stuff. And she done an excellent job. She done real good. I got a lot out of it.
So she will be developing a draft for us within the next couple of weeks. And we'll finalize it from there and we'll have that strategic plan ready to go, in June. It technically doesn't start till July 1, but we do have a couple of components that we need to tackle in June before we start. So we'll be ready. Jen, do you want to give us some school updates?
Yeah, we have the summer school registration form that we're going to be rolling out. We want to have summer school registration prior to summer school starting, which will be June 9th. We're going to run it for 3 weeks for 12 days. We're going to be on a 4-day schedule. I am grabbing
Would you think the
20th. And
Are the hours, Jen?
right now it's going to be 8:30 to 2. The students will arrive there. Everything will be at NAPI for the little learners through 8th grade at NAPI. And we will have an attendance aide there watching attendance. For high school, we'll be at VHA. We have an attendance person there watching their attendance. They will have they will each have a trip. Whether it's the grade bands or the elementary and the high school will have a trip at the end, the first week of that final week of summer school, which will be like the 23rd and 24th. And they'll, in order to go, they have to be in attendance at summer school. We do not have any we will not be running transportation to get students to summer school, so it'll be parent drop off. We're going to be focusing on foundational skills in math and ELA literacy, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and handwriting, which would be handwriting and cursive, multiplication facts, addition facts, and just get really some fun activities just to build those skills. And then, of course, at the high school, recovery credits or initial credits. And then VAWAP will be happening as well. We have our staff chosen. And like I said, we want to get all of our enrollment happening so that they start the day right after school gets out, which would be the Monday after school gets out. Any questions on summer school? So we'll be rolling that out on Facebook so that the link will be active on Facebook. So all of the registration will be online on a Google Meet. On a Google form, sorry. And we'll have those links available to all the counselors in the district as well and the teachers.
is this new having it, like the registration earlier, like before school ends?
Yeah.
It's earlier, yeah.
Typically, they have it the day of, but we would like to
Oh,
know.
what you're
Yeah.
going into?
Mhm.
I like that.
Well, we also want to make it real purposeful.
Mm,
And if you're gonna go, you're gonna go
yeah,
to summer school and be committed to go.
for sure.
That way we're knowing how many we need to be prepared for.
Mhm.
I'm gonna skip down to D.
Sorry, I don't have a question on summer school. I want to back up to the 4-day on the
Okay.
request.
All right.
Did you ask those districts that you're gonna talk with if they take a Friday off, a Monday off, or if they take a middle of the week off? Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna skip down to D. This is the policy 2100P regarding the school calendar and day, schedules and programs. It's placed on here as an initial reading. That it does need to, if the district considers making that transition to a 4-day school, week. This is the policy that would need to change. Changing it from 180 days to 1,080 hours. If this policy isn't changed and we would adopt a 4-day school week, we would basically just be going to school year round. 4 days. So this policy does have to change if we move forward with that. So it's on here for the first reading. Would you like me to bring it back to the next board meeting? Or a second meeting?
Is this the change? If we change?
It's just on there so you can see it as is.
Well, I know I'm sorry. I know new policies have to be 3 reading thing, but does a change policy?
It's a change, it's not an amendment.
Yeah, it's on,
So it would,
I mean,
it would take.
3 readings.
readings.
You already know my position. so-
Yeah, mine too.
Any more questions on that?
I guess if the board consensus is to bring it back for a second reading, I mean, there's no problem with that, but this would have to pass before that.
Yeah, I will be bringing you additional information to the next meeting, so it
Why don't we do
could
that?
go on for a second reading.
Okay. I mean, that's me.
I'm with you, that means that it's
Okay with that?
Okay.
more interested.
I do have one other thing. I wanted to look at the BPS building principal demographics. Later on in the agenda, you will be, seeing a proposed salary schedule for our principals and directors. And I just want to give you a little bit of background information regarding those changes and then how we would fund those changes if approved. So if you look at the demographics page at first, which is that one with mostly black print, the spreadsheet. You can look across our district, and we did survey our principals and looked at every aspect of their role. And so we have Stimitsitzikan Elementary, we have BAB, BES, Big Sky, Glendale, NAPI, BMS, BHS, BHA. We have 2 principals at Bullshoe. Jen supervises BAB. We have 2 principals at BES. I supervise Big Sky in the colonies. NAPI has 2 principals. EMS currently just has 1, but has 2 positions. BHS has 3 principals, and Jen and I have been sharing the load for BHA. The student count, if you look across the student count, you can see that, of course, our high school has the greatest number of students at 524. Middle school has 380. However, Bullshoe Elementary has 343. So those are our 3 highest schools in terms of student population. I did add the special education student count, the IDEA count. You can see that at the middle school and high school and NAPI, we have a larger number of special education students in those buildings. Our Bullshoe Elementary and BES are continuing to increase because since we've returned from COVID and with the hiring of additional school psychologists, we've been able to recoup some of our years of lack of evaluations. And so those numbers will continue to increase, probably more comparable to the other schools. But with those students, it takes a significant amount of time in terms of IEP meetings, which at minimum, it's about an hour per meeting. And some of those students have evaluations, and those evaluations are probably about an hour-long meeting. And so that student count of special education students is a significant load on principals during the course of their day. Certified staff across those buildings. Bolshu Elementary has 34.5. Tab 1, BES 28.5, Big Sky 2, Glendale 1, Napi 27.5, BMS 35, BHS 42, and BHA 8.5. One of the things I do want to point out about administrators, so in Montana, school administrators are assigned by two things. One, the number of staff supervision that they supervise, and the next being the student count. And so we do want to look at the student count in those buildings and the staff supervision to determine the load on those principals. Classified staff, you can see those numbers. Professional, technical, we do have a small group of those, and some of them are in our buildings. So overall, Bolshu Elementary has 64.5 staff that they supervise. 4 at BAB, 47.5 at BES, 2 at Big Sky, 1 at Glendale, 48 at Napi, 55.5 at BMS, 67 at BHS, and 11 at BHA. So the supervision of staff entails a lot of things. One entails those annual evaluations, which currently in our certified contract, it's a significant load. Our tenure or non-tenured teachers have 2 observations and then a summative evaluation. So they're spending time with those, but they're doing pre-conferences, goal setting, the classroom observation, they're doing post-conferences. Sorry.
I'm embarrassing myself.
They're coming back and doing that second observation cycle and then putting those pieces together for that summative evaluation. So non-tenured staff, it's a pretty time-consuming process during the course of those principals' days. And then our tenured staff, they have that same cycle with with goal setting, pre-conference, classroom observation, and then post-conference summative evaluation. So they just do that cycle one time for tenured staff. So you can see definitely high school has 67, but Bolshu Elementary is not too far behind at 64.5 staff. So they are supervising a high number of staff in those 2 buildings. The budget information is there for you. This is what's allocated to the principals at the building level to support their daily operations outside of staffing costs. So they are managing those funds as well. And you can see as we get to the middle school and high school, we add Carl Perkins and then the Gear Up grant. I don't know off the top of my head, that's why the X's are there. We also have CTE money. I can't tell you right now what that amount is. But you can see that some of them are managing a certain amount of money to be able to operate their schools. And then federal partnerships. Every school has a federal partnership with ESCA or ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. We all have federal requirements for statewide testing, student achievement, supporting reading instruction. And then IDEA is that federal partnership for special education students. But as we get to the middle school and high school, there are additional federal and state partnerships, Gear Up, TRIO. Carl Perkins has a significant amount of requirements under it. So those partnerships are an increased load for those principals at those buildings. Community partnerships. Some of our buildings have strong community partnerships that they actively spend time every week, every month to maintain those partnerships. Bolshu Elementary specifically has a partnership with Blackfeet Early Childhood Center. They meet regularly to support the transition of students from Head Start to their building as kindergartners. Browning Elementary adds a parent-teacher organization in there. BAB as a parent-teacher organization in there. BES does not have any external partnerships that are formalized that I know of. The colonies, there is a significant partnership between the colony itself and the German teachers. We are communicating with them for the success of those schools on those colonies. And then NAPI, BMS, Jen, remind me what BBH is.
UHA.
What is that?
BBH.
Blackfeet Behavioral Health.
Okay, so they have partnerships, starting at NAPI all the way through BHA with Blackfeet Behavior Health. And then the high school, adds BFCC and at the CTE Advisory Board is a requirement there. You can see the number of clubs across those buildings, the number of family engagement or literacy night events across those buildings. That's after the school day. After the principal's hours. Those are the number of events they supervise. School board meeting attendance, those are the number of school board meetings required for attendance, one of them being in person, the other being joining digitally.
Do you even have 36?
There is.
That's only 24.
So, but we have some new meetings. I was counting them on,
Yeah, so the new meetings are two.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I took Eileen's list and I counted them. There were 36. Other evening or weekend student activities. The high school has, no other building has any, but the high school has 13. Those include prom, homecoming dance, Jen, what else?
There are the other dances, all the senior
Senior breakfast, senior.
Senior
scholarship,
awards,
yeah, all of those events.
portfolios.
Portfolios. Yeah, and then the athletic events. So you can see when we get to NAPI, they have 18 athletic events for after school hours, after principal's workday hours. Middle school has 9. The difference, there's only 9 separate events. The one thing that the middle school does is they pull them together in a jamboree. So 3 teams meet. So, they might be longer than NAPI's events across, the course of several hours, 4 to 5, 6 hours on a Saturday. But there are only 9 of them across the course of the year, or across the course of this year. The high school has 66 athletic events that they are responsible for supervising, and BHA has none. So there are distinct differences in the workload at some of our buildings in many different areas. There isn't one that has them all, but you can see the responsibility across the workload of those principals. So I wanted to share that with you. The next piece of information I want you to keep in mind as you review that salary proposal. This compares our certified staff, which our principals are certified staff. But this is our certified teachers and this is our principals. Our highest paid teachers are $84,782 on our current salary schedule. They are contracted for 187 days from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. For a total of 1,496 hours across the course of the year. They are guaranteed a 45-minute lunch within that day. Their hourly rate of pay on that lane and step is 56.67 per hour. They have 14 days of sick and personal leave. And in addition to that, they have funeral leave 3 days for the family group that's identified in that contract. When you look at our principals, the lowest paid principals, $90,158. The highest paid principal is $105,568. They are contracted for 215 days with hours from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And then those additional required after school hours, board meetings, activities, events that are not calculated in this hourly rate. They are just added on and counted. So at minimum, after school hours, it's about 80 after school hours that any one of them has extra. At the maximum, that high school category, it's about 184 extra hours. And I did calculate 2 hours per event. But like we talked about the middle school, some of those might be a 6-hour day in terms of a game or activity. So I did just calculate the 2 hours per event, but many of them are much longer. So their contracted work hours are 1,720, and they are not guaranteed a lunch. It's ideal for them to be able to get an hour lunch. However, the lunch time, those lunch hours, are some of the best times to meet with parents, to have meetings for SPED, or solutions meetings, and so they don't very often walk out the door and take a lunch. So it really is a gift to them if they actually do get to do that on any given day. So most likely on any given week, they are working at least 45 hours in addition to some additional after school hours. The hourly rate based on those numbers for our lowest paid principal is $52.99. That is over $3 less than our highest paid teacher. And there is a significant increase in responsibilities with those principal loads. The hourly rate of our highest paid principal is $61.37. The hourly rate of our next highest principal is $60.44. The hourly rate of our third highest principal is $60.40, and the fourth highest principal is $60.12. So if we add in those additional hours, the hourly rate of the minimum for the highest paid teacher with those minimum number of hours would be $58.64, which is really just a couple of dollars extra compared to our certified staff. Again, the load is significantly increased as you become a principal. And then hourly rate with the maximum additional hours becomes $55.44 if they're putting in those additional hours at the maximum. So then it puts us down below those certified staff.
In other words, you could be taking a pay cut if you become a principal.
Yeah, that is the reality for our principals. Our principal pay scale has not kept up, even though it appears, I am not discrediting when you look at my salary and the total cost of that. When we look at Jen's salary, look at the total cost of that. When we look at any of our staff that have a 90,000 plus salary, that's a large sum of money. However, the workload significantly increases, and that's what we have to compensate for. We have to compensate for an equitable workload, or if you have increased duties, then we need to be respectful and align a salary that fits the additional duties we're expecting of you. The annual leave, the principals, this should have been corrected a long time ago. I'm not certain why it wasn't. They get 14 days of sick and personal leave. When you calculate the ratio of the certified staff of those 14 days, if you calculated it out for 2/15, the principal should be getting 2 additional days. But they've always just gotten 14, the same number, and they have no funeral. That's not a part of their no funeral.
I said, it's just,
Yeah,
it's just how it was, I mean. It's
Yeah.
not-
Did it always been like that? No funeral leave for
On
no?
the administration,
Mhm.
in my tenure.
Yeah.
Not it.
So the certified staff, up until this year, has been the only employee group that has had it. Classified staff negotiated it into this agreement for the first time. But our professional technical employees, our principals, do not have funeral leave.
Yeah. And I can't answer why not. I mean,
Everybody should have to read.
administration's always been separated out, as she's pointing out. Some of these things do need correcting.
Rebecca, statewide,
Mhm.
where does Browning Schools sit statewide when we, in paying our certified and our principal staff? I mean, are we high in the state?
So one of the
higher?
one of the things we want to consider, not very many schools have an 8 to 5
Okay.
principal or administrator workday. It's still in many districts is comparable to the 8 to 4 teacher workday. The other thing is there are not very many that have a 215-day contracted year.
Okay.
Most of them have anywhere from a 205 to a 210-day contracted year. It depends on the school district and the school size, but even Great Falls, when you look across their principals, only the high school principal has they have a year-round job. And then after that, it reduces significantly in the number of productive days. The elementary, I don't even know if the elementary principals are at the 205. Okay.
And Rebecca's right, it's not only the days, it's 8 to 4. There's not a lot of extra duties that go in across the state in school districts such as Browning Public Schools, which I think is part of our success too. But again, you're looking at 40 hours, go home. And so you've got to compare that. Class A schools were right at the top, but again, they don't have 2,000 kids nor all these programs. So.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give you that background information. So when we get to those salary schedules, for the principals, for the directors, you had some information of where those numbers are coming from.
Any more questions for Rebecca on anything there?
Are we negotiating with principals, or is this just for our information?
That's for we don't negotiate with the principals. We establish their salary and their increment.
Good, so we could cut them?
Well, that's why she presented it. That's why the information was presented, but. And they should say that's what they're good. They're terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian.
All right, with no more questions, we will move into HR status. Deb?
So we're still getting a few requests here and there for transfers, and so we're still working on our draft HR status report for next year. But what we've got going right now is at the elementary level, we still need a couple of TAs, sped teacher. The secondary level, we need a couple of OTECs, a business ed teacher, driver's ed teacher, sped teacher, and newly, we need an HR administrative assistant. So we added that, as you guys approved a while back. We need a maintenance skilled tech, we need a flex custodian, special services nurse, couple of 12-month bus drivers now, and 1 9-month bus driver.
When do you want to give the coaching update, Kelly? Or would you like that?
Everybody's hired.
We're working on hiring people back for next year. So,
There's a little slander involved.
I have a question for Bev.
Yeah.
So I think it was when I first came on. The first couple meetings or something, it was towards the end of the year. There was a teacher that wasn't gonna be rehired. She must have been tenured or something, so the board got to, decide on it or whatever, and we decided to give her another chance, but other staff that just have like 1-year contracts or whatever, like coaches or different people. If the if the superintendent or AD decides to not rehire them, the board, is there anything the board can do to change that decision, or is it up to them? Is our policy, what does our policy say?
Decides to not rehire who? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Well, just
Anybody like on a
general.
1-year contract, like a,
non-tenure.
So that was probably a non-tenured staff member that was being, and so that would have gone under the personnel section. For the coaches that are going on to these next agendas and the most recent ones, the list was made for recommendation. Those that were not being recommended were just left off. They don't have to go under the personnel section for the board to vote.
And to go with that, if you're not recommended back, you can still apply. That's obviously not known right now.
so anyway, but I'm asking our policy, there's nothing we can do to, stop
No,
you
it's-
from,
It's state law, you get into confidentiality and cause. Cause is the big one, and but after a tenure, you have to first off ask cause, so it does come to the board, but anything else.
so that teacher that had tenure, that was a board thing.
Right,
but-
she had
But the
cause.
rest of it is not,
Yeah.
according to
So
our
it
policy.
depends on, the union agreement that they're under. So the certified staff, they're under that certified union agreement. They can be, recommended for non-renewal without cause, be placed on the board agenda for the board to make that final vote. Anytime before they sign that board contract. Yeah, so that can come. If it is a tenured staff, and there is a reason for termination, as a administrative team, we have to present that case to you. Again, under that personnel, and the board ultimately makes that decision. Classified employees, our Title II employees, they have they have some separate rights, according to state law, that we do have to follow some steps of discipline if we ultimately want to bring them to the board for non-renewal, and they would come under that personnel section. Our professional technical employees and our directors' positions, those are very similar to what we're seeing in the coaches. Like if those are brought forward and a name is left off and you vote, then those that are left off are not rehired. They're not part of a union agreement, and so they don't have those same protections as those employees.
Well, and I just wanna point out one difference with Browning versus a lot of other schools around the state is classified have a union, so a lot of this is in their negotiated agreement. So a lot of classified people across the state don't have near the rights your classified people have.
And so our coaches are not part of a union agreement. It really is just a recommendation or not, and leave them on.
Alright,
So,
They have a start and end date on their contract.
Every year.
Any more questions for coaching update? Colin, do you have anything?
Yeah, we're moving on to the next year, trying to get. We have 3 positions open, ready to receive applications, which we're already getting.
Do we have any questions for Colin? None, we'll move on to resignations.
I gotta say, Ladine has been here a long time.
yeah.
Ladine and Carly.
And Marlene, yeah.
And Rose, how long you been here,
And
Rose?
Rose.
Oh, I didn't even see her back there.
Yeah.
Finally, we were Rose.
Gail.
I believe Gail too, but
Gail.
Yeah, Gail, all of them actually.
Yeah, we
100 years there.
We will have some significant recognitions at this year's staff appreciation for employees, that we have a lot of employees who have a number of years service.
And then did not point out a lot of yours, so the board being aware, people are starting to retire and
Yeah.
and duly need recognized, but they will be very, very big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Rose, you wear like a 6, right?
What's it?
Oh, I can't even tease you. You're way back there. She always used to tease me, and when I was first on the board, Rose was the first one to tease me.
Didn't sink in, did it?
Nope.
So have any more questions on it? None?
Who's in Carlene's chair over there?
This is Cicely, so she's filling in for Carlene.
Hi.
Quiet as a mouse.
From all ears today.
Perfect.
All right, we'll move into items of action. Hiring elementary.
Motion A and B.
Second.
We have a motion by James, a second by Mike. Any questions or comments?
Glad to see a couple of teachers.
Yeah.
No questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? High school.
Motion A.
Second.
We have a motion by Brian, second by James. Any questions or comments? None. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? District-wide.
Motion A and B.
One second.
I have a motion by Brian and a second by Donna. Do we have any questions, comments? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? Contract service agreements.
Congratulations.
Motion A.
We have a motion by James,
Second.
second by Brian.
What does that stand for?
Matt?
Matt?
I can't tell.
I can't tell you what that acronym is. I don't see it very often and in fact, it's so common that it's usually spelled out as lowercase.
Robert Secret.
I was gonna say, it's mandatory training.
Yeah, something, I think.
Pretty cheap, but mandatory training.
I was just hoping somebody knew what it was.
Do we have any questions or comments on that?
416.
None? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Out of state travel, high school.
Motion A.
Second. We have a motion by James, second by Mike. Any questions or comments?
Have they raised any of these funds?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have them all raised except
Cool.
maybe a couple $1,000.
Couple thousand.
Yeah.
And where are they getting that? Is that us?
A must.
Well, that's part of this.
Did I not see that?
They're still fundraising.
Yeah, that's-
They're still fundraising, they may end up coming back
What has Portland got to offer them?
as the.
Oh, okay.
Voodoo donuts. I think it was 2,300 to be exact, but they were short.
23?
Yeah.
Were there any carryover from last year's seniors?
There
There
are
are
some senior groups that have money left over.
That we were gonna work.
Did we see what those totals are?
Yeah,
we
we can.
should be able to cover it with us.
All right.
Well, I'm glad to hear that they've raised some money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they raised quite a bit.
No questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? District wide.
Motion HC3.
No way, we ain't sending Robert nowhere. Look at that hat.
It's not asking. It's only asking you for leave.
I know, I
We
know.
have a motion by Lockley, second by Mike. Any questions? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I post.
Okay, now,
You don't get a vote, Robert.
now the next point, then.
Uh-huh.
Okay, but-
In-state travel, district wide.
Well, motion ABC.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Donna, second by Brian. Do we have any questions or comments on that?
I'll say aye only if you want to give Brian.
With none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Approval, district wide.
Motion A through M.
Second.
We have a motion by James and a second by Donna. Do we have any?
Yes.
I have a couple of things that I want to add. So on the principal's salary schedule, the increase is significantly more to get them on the salary schedule. But as you can see down the salary schedule, and it is a 3-year, I'm proposing it for 3 years because it does help us budget across the course of the next 3 years. You can see that from year to year, it's only those first 5 steps, it's a 2% increase. Then it decreases to 1% because that is when our salaries increase, then the percentage is not the same as giving a 3% increase on 50,000 as giving a 3% increase on 100,000. So it does make some adjustments in that scale, and it goes from 2 to 1 to a 0.5% increase. So some of those increases are about $1,000 a year as they move down the steps. The cost to make this a salary schedule work is going to be coming from the STARS Act. Our principals are eligible for the STARS Act, so they will be bringing in approximately $3,800 extra over the next few years because of their highly qualified certification.
Isn't that only a 2-year funding source though?
It's for the first 2 years, but it's actually, schools have been asked to project it out for 12 years. So it's guaranteed for these first 2 years. And so we will make the salary increase with those first 2 years to cover this 3-year salary schedule.
Yeah.
So we will do that.
But
But the state has to
So the-
continue funding it after that.
It might go away, so they.
And there's no guarantee
There's
that
no
they will,
guarantee on them.
but
does
they're
everybody
working,
understand that?
they're working
Why?
hard to commit to it.
It's a little different, than the COVID money went out, and again, schools today.
Yeah.
Browning is not, are struggling. I mean, we're at a budgetary decision and knew this was happening, but I've got schools out there on that cliff now, and it's like, hey, you know, you knew it was happening, and so, yes, these salaries will, if the stars go away, Gene Forte's term limited out, you never know, but I will say the state's been kind and they are projecting this to continue on,
So this is
so.
the first time you guys will have like lanes and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I mean, like right now, are all the principals making about the same?
So
No,
they're not,
no.
They're all over.
So the principals have been really interesting. When we went back and did a file review of their salaries across the years. So Cicely and Tony, the year they were moved into a principal role, I think it was John Rouse's maybe last year.
Yes.
The base pay for principals coming in was $77,000. The very next year, that group of principals that came in the very next year, that pay increased to a base pay of $84,000. So although we have Cicely and Tony with a significant number of years experience, we have principals with less experience making almost as much money as they are.
Yep.
Even though they had, Cicely has 13 years experience in
Yeah,
her role.
no, this is a great,
She's been in prison.
4 years more
13
than any
years.
other.
I like
So-
seeing a scale. It's
Yeah,
gonna
scale is
be
nice.
help.
And the scale, it is broken down into duties and responsibilities. Certainly that high school principal role is significant. It does need to be considered at a higher rate of pay. So you can see those lanes, that's how they're set up. Assistant principals, although they do fill in for the lead principal as part of that job description, when the lead principal is gone, that role is significantly different than the lead principal. And then the lead principal across the lead principal across our elementaries is different than our high school. Across the elementaries, including the middle school, when we look at those demographics, they're real comparable in terms of duties for that lead principal. So Bolshu, BES, NAPI, and BMS, the lead principal has similar duties.
Is there anybody that already makes more than their lane or?
There's not.
Okay,
So
everybody's gonna get a raise.
everybody's gonna get a raise to get on the schedule, and then it'll just have those small incremental increases for the next couple of years.
Does that include the directors in?
Yes, so we'll talk about the directors. So that's how the principal schedule is broken down. The directors' pay scale, we looked at that very similar. If you look at, there are two schedules proposed, to cover all of our directors' positions. The top schedule are positions required to have a bachelor's degree. The bottom schedule are positions that do not require a bachelor's degree, but they may have a degree. There's no doubt about that, but they do not require that. Prevention and wellness, so we look at that top schedule. Those duties are different than technology, human resources, and finance. So you look across those, our finance director, whomever's in that role, that is the greatest responsibility in terms of a director position required to have a bachelor's. And so it's prorated based on responsibility and duties. The base pay for the bachelor, or those that don't require a bachelor's degree, there's a couple of differences here. In that first lane, food service is year-round. PCOP is 215, NAS is 215, and childcare is just 189 day, or no, they are 215. Their employees are 189, sorry. So some of those positions are less days. So that is accounted for. Transportation is the next one. Student activities is that third lane. And certainly our facilities director, that is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week position. Those alarms, they're on my phone as well, but they are going off all night long and they require a response to them. So Reed is on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sletton got a load of materials on Saturday afternoon. I was walking out of the senior portfolios. The truck drivers came up, wanted to deliver it. It wasn't supposed to be delivered till Monday. Reed came in and unloaded it. So he does put in a certain number of hours across the course of any day and week that are significantly different than those other director positions.
So say again, the steps, are those the years?
The steps are just, they're not necessarily equate to years. It just, we start at the top.
Okay.
The first year they come in and they just move down. So it's comparable years. They move down one step
Each year.
Each year.
What it is capped.
each year, but there is a cap.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the 20.
Do you
Okay, I
have
didn't see
a
that. Okay.
scale too, where they have bachelor's, then a bachelor's plus 10 and a master's plus 10? I don't know if you guys pay more for doctorate or we.
It's just that.
But,
master's plus-
Masters.
I don't exactly work here.
Masters plus 10 is as far as you can go on it.
But,
In my reading this right, the 215-day contract is gonna be modified to 210.
So in the principles, if you go back to,
It's back to those.
we have had a problem with our payroll calendar for a number of years because we have employees that had 225-day 260, 225, 215, 180, 207. We had an odd one in there, 189 days and 187 days, and it created chaos for the payroll department. So this year we cleaned it up. We got rid of the 225. Everybody went to a 215. That 207 went to 215. Anyone that was 225 came down to a 215 to get that cleaned up so that we could get our consistent pay groups. And so with the principal's salary schedule, to get them to an equitable rate of pay that I had shared with you on this, as our certified staff. If we contract them for 215 days on this scale, we'll be setting ourselves back up to pay them less than our certified staff. And according to the pay scale, we wouldn't be able to afford them on a 200. So we are reducing, I am proposing to reduce their contract to a 210-day contract. In addition to that, we will add 2 days of, leave because that should have been provided to them previously. As you calculate that in comparison to the teachers. And then I did propose adding 2 days of funeral leave. Many of them have elderly parents. And
How much would this be if it was a 215 day contract?
I don't have my calculator. Yeah, this,
Do I just do 215
Yeah.
times that?
yeah, 84,782 divided by 215. That would give you the daily rate and then divided by 8.
What do I do?
You divide the 84,000 by 187, multiply it by 215.
Carry the 7.
Divided by 215. Divided by 215. Now, Sandy thinks way more complicated than I do.
$394.
Divided by 8. How many hours in a day?
$394.
$50 an hour.
Yeah, so $49.29 an hour if our teachers had to work 215 days.
But I was wondering how much is that, I mean, how much is it in a year for 215, so that,
97,477.
okay, so. That's what I was.
Yeah.
So,
There's a
um,
difference.
cause right now a teacher, the most they can make is 84,782 and they have a. Masters plus 10, yet, someone without a degree could make
Still,
Well, they have,
$95,000
they have to
or
work, yeah.
$102,000.
to get there, they have to work 20 years in that role. Are you looking at the director scale?
Yeah, but this
Yeah.
teacher probably worked, how
But-
many years to
yeah.
get there?
Yeah, one of the things that's certified, they get to negotiate their contract every 2 to 3 years.
where they don't.
These groups don't get to negotiate their contract.
At all,
And so,
but they're gonna be looking at that. And then at us.
well, we don't have anybody that has that much experience. So that's if they stayed with us for 10 years more than they already have got. We don't have any of our directors that are in those steps
Even close.
9 through 20.
And I, again, I agree, I think,
We'll all be about that.
I know it wasn't just Rebecca and Jen that put the work into this, but, and my veteran board members know, I mean, this is continually been an issue we've been meaning to fix. There's just been so much other things than Rebecca can remember, but there was a time where, paraprofessionals, we gave this soup, we said, here's 30,000, you divide up to. And, half of your administrators got some money and half got none. And that was just how it was done. And again, so I appreciate the lanes and the understanding of where they can move and go. From there, we went to just give everyone 2% every year. And like you said, we had some at 30,000 getting a 2% and some at 80. So I appreciate the hard work from you put into this to make it understandable.
Yeah. So what that does, so Travis's question, the 215. So because we're reducing our principals to 210, and we just spent the last year cleaning up those chaotic contracted days, we did also reduce those directors who have a 250-day or 15-day contract. Not all of them do, but there are just a few who have a 215 contract that will be reduced to a 210 contract. Now, what that equates to is everybody will typically start, that has a 215-day contract, will typically start that last week of July.
Right.
And then they'll work through the end of the year. We'll get through leadership week. They'll have one more week and then they'll be off a week.
So they'll be off the month of July.
So they'll
3
be,
weeks.
so they'll be off about 4 complete weeks, 4.5 complete weeks.
Still gonna end up working way more than 210,
Yeah.
but that's fine, it's all for the kids.
So Rebecca, just for clarification on your lanes for the principals, you have in lane 3, you have the elementary assistant principal and the middle school assistant principal as being the same. So are the duties gonna change too? Like the middle school principal assistant has had, like, they've covered events, things like that with
So
the
if
assistant
you-
or with the main
Yeah,
principal?
if you look
More
at this,
than the NAPI.
no, when you look at the number of events at the NAPI, they have
That was
30.
this year.
Yeah, but that will continue. They have had a lot
Oh,
of
they're not gonna
success.
do home events for middle school now?
Oh, that was this year. They are going to do home events. So yes, So for this year, there were a few middle school events that were canceled. I think, three.
There was one they were given away.
Okay,
The athletic director gave them away because, and then the former principal, specifically asked the AD to schedule them like that this year. So they didn't have to work.
yeah.
But that's never been the case. We've always been pretty comparable to the high school. Because, every home team, so basketball, for example, we always start with basketball. They always have at least 2 home events per team, the A team, the B team. This year, only the B team got 1 home game.
Okay.
And the A team traveled for every event. Football, we were supposed to host 1 jamboree that was given to Conrad.
We actually did host one jamboree.
Oh, yeah, we did. We
Yeah.
hosted the playoffs.
Okay, yeah, and then the one that we were, the regular season was supposed to be, and here was given, so we're like, so I guess my question is, we've always had way more than this. Just with the circumstances, it looks really low this year.
So with the information I have for this year, that's what this was developed on. If that changes moving forward, this certainly can come back to make an adjustment for that position.
Did you guys get to participate in this, like?
Yeah, we provided information to Jen. The reason why we're getting into that with middle school is because next year we're gonna move, and it's our conference, because we're playing all the B schools. And what they do is they play 8th graders up to the next level. And they're hurting on numbers, so we weren't able to have 6th grade games, what we used to have all the time. And then it comes down to volleyball and girls basketball are gonna switch now. And they're gonna be the same time as the high school. So we're gonna get into other conflicts of can we even host? So that number looks ugly, and it's gonna get worse most likely, because we're putting out 2 teams per sport while they're barely making a team. And now they're gonna go to not having an 8th grade, 7th grade, and 6th grade team. They're going to having an A, B, and a C, and disregarding grade all together, while we're still putting out kids at the A, B, and C. And Haver still has the same exact issue. Not on our side, participation wise, they're right in there with the B schools. So we have a participation level that's unmatched to who we're playing right now. So it's our conference is the reason why those numbers are low, and it could get worse.
I know we could have 3 teams on volleyball.
And we could, and then what makes it worse is now we're gonna play the same time as the high school. Well, that gets into refs, that gets into how personnel, who's gonna help, security, it just, everything.
Why'd they change that conference schedule?
It's so to compensate for those B schools, because their 8th graders gotta play up. So if they have an 8th grader playing at volleyball, now we're scheduling around the B schools and their schedules, their varsity schedules.
That's gonna make it better. I mean, like, I noticed, this year when the 8th grade, our 8th grade teams played their 8th grade teams, and they had a girl that had already played a whole season of varsity volleyball. They were way more prepared than our girls were.
Yep.
And so that won't happen anymore if that's, the seasons are matched anyway. So that's one positive.
I could see some.
Mr. Chair, I wanna,
Are you saying
Oh,
the
no, I
number's
heard
gonna
it
get
discussed
worse, we're not gonna have as many.
No, that was,
It could.
there was some questions that he asked, and
High school.
we will hear
So
him.
you'll have to travel for.
Do you have any more questions on
No, we're just.
on any of these A through N? We do have the motion and a second. Is there any more questions?
I do have one more piece of information, not about the salary schedules, but we did come to an agreement, a compliance agreement with the union, to be prepared to accept the STARS Act. So, OPI will be asking us to, confirm that we will meet the requirements of the STARS Act by May 15th. To do that, we needed an agreement or an MOU, or MOA with the, union, and at our last negotiated session, we were able to do that. and make that agreement, we will meet that compliance, so we'll be able to verify with OPI. So that's a significant amount of funding that will be coming from that for the next, guaranteed for the next 2 years, Donna. After that.
Just worried after that.
2 years.
One other question I have on this principal and director
Mhm.
pay schedule is like, when you do the teacher and the classified or is it classified negotiations, we find out how much more money it's gonna cost the district. So we don't, how much
You want
more
me
is
to
this
tell you
gonna
that?
cost the
Okay,
district?
give me just a minute.
And the other thing is, you think we're prepared to vote on this tonight?
It's ready to vote. It's a first and a second. It's on here to vote if Mr. Chair asks for the vote.
Okay. To make this increase, from where we're currently, it's going to cost us $78,000 this first year. We will bring that money in with the STARS Act due to the principals.
So that's just the principles.
Yes, that's on the principals. For the directors, the increase will be. It's not totaled for me. So 13, about $14,000 on the directors.
No more questions. We have a motion and a second
For
All-
the whole.
for the whole thing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unopposed. All right, we're personnel, we have none, legal issues, we have none. Now we'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Locke,
Second.
second by Brian, all those in favor? Any opposed of adjournment?
Aye.
Motion, meeting adjourned. Thank you, guys.
That's